Ever feel like the way organizations work is, well, kind of outdated?
Yeah, like stuck in the past.
Exactly. So today, get ready to have your mind blown. We're diving into DAOs.
Decentralized autonomous organizations, right?
You got it. Think organizations without those traditional power structures.
Where the community actually governs itself. It's a pretty radical concept when you really think about it.
Totally. But let's back up for a sec. What exactly is a DAO? Paint me a picture.
Okay, so imagine a company, but there's no CEO calling the shots. No secret boardroom deals either.
Okay, I'm picturing no more corner office.
Gone. Instead, every single decision, from budgets to projects, is decided by the community.
Wow, and this all happens through code.
Through the power of code, exactly.
That sounds both incredibly futuristic and also maybe a little scary. Like, how is that even possible?
That's where our old friend blockchain comes in. It's the backbone, making this level of transparency and security possible.
Blockchain, huh? So it's not just about cryptocurrency anymore.
Definitely not. Think of it like a digital ledger, right?
Yeah.
But it's completely transparent and tamper-proof.
Okay, that's starting to make a little more sense. But let's bring this down to earth a bit. Give me some examples. Where are DAOs already shaking things up?
All right, so one name you've probably heard, MakerDAO.
MakerDAO.
They're the ones behind DAI,
Which
a
is...
type of stablecoin. It's pegged to the US dollar.
Right, I've heard of that. Okay. So how does that make them a DAO?
Because their whole system, the way DAI operates, it's governed by the MakerDAO community.
Wait, so instead of, say, like a central bank deciding things, it's the people actually using DAI calling the shots.
Exactly. It's like putting the power of a financial institution in the hands of the people.
Whoa, that's a huge shift from traditional finance. Okay, are there any other examples out there, like other DAOs actually making a real-world impact?
Absolutely. So think about Uniswap, that massive decentralized exchange.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's completely governed by their users, too. Everything is voted on through this DAO structure, like which cryptocurrencies get listed, even how much the fees are.
So we're talking real money, real markets, all being controlled by, what, like a decentralized community instead of a central authority? My mind is kind of blown.
A pretty wild concept.
So there's got to be a downside to all this, right? What's the catch?
Well, it's definitely not all perfect.
What?
Yeah, there are some challenges to think about.
Okay, so spill the tea. What could go wrong with this whole DAO thing?
Well, one of the biggest ones, security.
Ah, yeah, that makes sense. Especially with all that money floating around.
Right. Early on in the DAO space, there was a pretty big event that really shook people's trust. It involved the DAO.
Literally called the DAO. I think I vaguely remember hearing about this. It didn't end well, did it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
There was this vulnerability in their code, and, well, it got exploited.
So, like, hackers.
Basically. Millions of dollars worth of ether. The cryptocurrency got stolen.
Ouch.
It was a harsh lesson. Even with all the supposed security of blockchain DAOs, they're still vulnerable to human error, and bad actors, unfortunately.
That makes sense, though. I mean, even if it's code making the rules, someone still had to write that code in the first place, right?
Exactly.
So what are people doing to try and prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways from that whole thing was the importance of auditing. Smart contracts, those lines of code that actually govern a DAO, they need to be super carefully checked for vulnerabilities.
So it's like having a second set of eyes, like expert eyes, come in and double check everything.
Exactly. It's like standard practice in the DAO space now.
Makes sense. But even then, there's still a risk.
Always, yeah. But it's a necessary one. That whole incident with the DAO, it was definitely a setback.
For sure.
But it also pushed the entire space to step up their game to make things more secure.
Okay, so security, check. What other challenges do these DAOs face? Anything else we should be aware of?
Yeah, another big one is decision-making. Or really the potential for it to get really bogged down.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it trying to get any large group of people to agree on something. It's tough.
Yeah, that's fair. Herding cats comes to mind.
Right, and with DAOs, you're often talking about potentially thousands of token holders all over the world.
Oh, wow. Yeah, good luck getting everyone on the same page. So what happens then?
Well, it can lead to what some people call governance fatigue. People just get tired of constantly needing to weigh in on every little decision.
I could see that.
Or they just lose interest altogether.
So even though everyone technically gets a voice, actually getting stuff done efficiently could be a nightmare.
Exactly. And that's a really tricky thing that DAO developers are trying to solve. Like, how do you create these efficient systems that encourage participation but don't completely overwhelm people?
Yeah, finding that balance is key. Give everyone a voice, but also make sure those voices can actually come together to make decisions. Okay, so we've got security risks, we've got potential governance nightmares. Anything else we should add to the list of DAO challenges?
Let's talk about whale influence.
Whale influence. Okay, now you have to explain that one.
So in a lot of DAOs, your voting power is directly tied to how many tokens you hold, right?
Sure, that makes sense. The more you've got, the bigger you're saying things. But I can see how that could be a problem too.
Exactly. Because it means that a small group of really wealthy individuals, those are our whales, they could potentially amass enough voting power to kind of swing decisions in their favor.
Ah, so even in this decentralized utopia, we still have to worry about the age-old problem of a powerful few.
Pretty much. And it's something developers are really trying to figure out, how do you prevent that? One concept is quadratic voting.
Quadratic voting. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I have no idea what that means.
So imagine instead of each token being equal to one vote, the cost of your votes, it increases with every vote.
Hold on. So the more you vote?
The more expensive it gets.
Interesting. So it kind of disincentivizes those big players from just steamrolling everyone else.
Exactly. It forces them to be more strategic about how they use their influence.
Okay, I like where this is going. It sounds like a lot of thought is going into these systems. But so far, we've been talking mostly about the financial side of things. What about other applications for this DAO technology? I mean, you can't run a charity on Uniswap.
You're absolutely right. DAOs have the potential to revolutionize way more than just finance. For example, imagine a world where imagine a world where, like, social media platforms, they're run by their users through DAOs.
Okay, so we're talking about like a future where Facebook or Twitter is basically controlled by the people who use it. That's a pretty huge deal.
Right. Decisions about, like, content moderation policies, they wouldn't be made by some big corporation, but by the community itself.
I can see why people would be into that, especially with everything going on about censorship these days. But how would something like that even work?
So think about this. Users could actually propose and vote on changes to a platform's rules, like how to handle misinformation, for example, or hate speech.
That's interesting. So instead of just being mad at the algorithm, you actually have a say in how it works.
Exactly. They could even have a say in what happens with advertising revenue.
Mm-hmm.
How it's used, or if it gets distributed. It completely changes the power dynamic, right?
Yeah, big time. It's like users and these giant platforms are finally on a level playing field. But social media is just one example. What other industries could DAOs shake up?
Oh, man, the possibilities are huge. Let's take the music industry. Right now, artists, they often get a pretty raw deal when it comes to things like royalties.
Yeah, that's true. They don't always have a lot of control over their own music.
Right, but imagine a DAO that lets musicians and fans connect directly so they can fund new projects together, maybe even distribute music without needing a record label at all.
Whoa, cut out the middleman completely. I like the sound of that.
It puts the power back where it belongs, with the artists and the people who love their music. And it's not just about creative stuff either. Think charities and nonprofits.
Okay, yeah, I can see how DAOs could be huge for them.
One of the biggest problems they have is showing where all the donations go, proving that they're actually using the money for good.
Right, that transparency can be a big issue.
Exactly. A DAO structure could revolutionize that. Donors could see exactly how their money is being used.
Even have a say in how it's used, right?
Exactly. Like voting on which projects get funded, reading progress reports, holding the organization accountable. It could really change the whole philanthropy game.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So we've talked about how DAOs can change existing systems, but what about creating something totally new? Are there examples of DAOs doing things that were basically impossible before?
Right. That's what's so exciting about this technology. We're seeing totally new forms of collaboration and coordination, stuff that was unimaginable before.
Give me an example. What kind of stuff are we talking about?
Well, one area that's really blowing my mind is decentralized science, or DeSci.
DeSci. Okay, gotta admit, not familiar with that one.
Basically, using DAOs to fund and coordinate scientific research. But, like, outside of those traditional institutions,
You mean like universities and stuff?
Yeah. Right now, research is often stuck within those systems. It can be super competitive, hard to get money if you have an idea that's a little out there. DeSci wants to change that.
So it's like making science more democratic or something. I could get behind that.
Totally. DAOs are crucial because they offer a new way to manage funding, organize research, even share ownership of things like intellectual property.
And it's all transparent too, right?
Exactly.
Wow, that's really cool. So DAOs could lead to like a huge explosion in scientific innovation.
It's definitely possible.
Okay, so we've talked about disrupting industries, transforming how things work, but what about the actual people involved? What does this DAO revolution mean for like everyday workers?
It's a really important question. And honestly, I don't think anyone knows for sure what the future of work holds.
Yeah, that's fair. It's hard to predict that kind of thing.
Right. But it's probably safe to say that we're moving toward a totally different way of working.
Hmm.
More flexible, more fluid. The gig economy is kind of a glimpse into that, but DAOs, I think they could offer something much better.
Hold on, better. How so? It seems like it could go either way. Better how? I mean, is everyone just going to end up freelancing for some algorithm overlord or something? It's kind of a scary thought.
I don't think it's necessarily about algorithms taking over completely,
Mm.
but yeah, we might see a shift towards more flexible work. Like I was saying, the gig economy, it's kind of a preview of that.
Okay, but you said DAOs could be better. What makes you say that?
Okay, so think about this. A DAO, it's like a worker-owned cooperative.
Okay.
Instead of having a traditional boss, the workers themselves actually govern the entire organization.
So they're calling all the shots. How would that even work?
They decide how to divide up the work, how to share the profits, maybe even which projects they want to tackle.
Huh. So it's taking those worker-owned cooperatives that already exist and like supercharging them, using blockchain to make it all transparent and accountable.
Exactly. And because it's all on the blockchain, everyone can see what's happening. No more shady backroom deals.
I mean, it sounds pretty idealistic, but will it actually work that way in the real world?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are definitely challenges, things we can't predict, but the potential is huge. And honestly, these are the conversations we need to be having now, while this technology is still developing.
I agree. So we can figure out how to make it work for everyone.
Exactly. Not just a select few.
Well said. This whole deep dive has been, well, a lot to process. So much to think about. What's the one thing you hope people really take away from all of this? About DAOs, I mean.
I think it's important to remember that DAOs are about more than just technology. They represent this fundamental shift in how we view power, governance, even just the concept of an organization.
It's like redefining everything we thought we knew.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
And they offer a glimpse into a future where, hopefully, power is more evenly distributed, where decisions are made out in the open and communities have a much bigger say in their own future.
It's a future with a lot of potential, but also a lot of unknowns.
For sure. We've talked about the benefits, but those challenges are real. The security risks, governance issues, the potential impact on jobs. We need to be aware of all of that.
Absolutely. But the innovation in this space is definitely exciting.
Totally. And if anything we talked about today piqued your interest, I'd encourage you to go learn more, do some research, check out some DAOs, maybe even try participating in one.
Yeah, dive in. You never know what you might discover.
Mhm.
I love that. This is what it's all about, right? Sparking some curiosity, getting people to keep exploring these ideas.
Exactly.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep digging for information, and we'll catch you in the next one.